All right, here we are in Unit 7, Lesson 3. If you haven't already done so, on slide 1, if you would, please just start by telling me a little bit of how you're feeling right now, and give me a little bit more to the response too. So you can drag this purple dot to make our robot change its face to where you are feeling at this moment. And hopefully you're somewhere over here, but it's okay to be feeling a bit over here too. But if you can, give me a little bit more information. I'd like to see how you're doing and see what we can do to make us at least feel a little bit closer here, even if we may not be 100% there, right? Here we go. Our learning targets for today and our intention. Our target is to order rational numbers. So we're really looking now at some more rational numbers and putting them in order. And our learning intentions is to compare and order rational numbers and to use phrases like greater than, less than, and opposite to compare rational numbers. So we started looking at those words last lesson. So we're looking again at those same alligator symbols, or greater than, less than symbols. And now again, looking at this idea of what opposites are as well. So we're going to start with 3.1. And on 3.1, I'm going to just kind of organize these cards out a bit first. So here I have my directions card. I'll put that to the side. It says match the cards with the symbols greater than, less than, or equal to compare each pair of numbers. Be prepared to explain your reasoning. So here I'm also see my greater than symbol. I'll use this and put it off to the side. And I see my less than symbol. Let me put this here also. And my equal to symbol. And those are my categories I'm really putting them into. In this case, I'm going to then find out, well, which numbers really fit into the categories. And let's just go ahead and start with one together. I see here one that might be a little bit familiar for you, 12 compared to 19. And so I know 12 is less than 19, so I will put it not into this category because that's my greater than symbol. But here is my less than symbol. So 12 is less than 19 is where this goes. And to actually attach it, you'll notice I'll hover over there and we can see that it does outline it in blue. And so now we have two cards attached together already. If I see another one that falls into this category, let's see here, for example, 9.02 is less than 9.2. Because 9.02, I have 9 ones here. I also have 9 ones here also, which is good. In this case, I have 0 tenths, and here I have 2 tenths. This is like having no dimes. Here I have like 2 dimes. So here 20 cents versus no cents there, but I do have 2 pennies, which is those smaller. So that's not going to be helpful. So even if I'm thinking of this in terms of money, I can see how that works, but I'm going to attach this card by again hovering it over, and you can see now we have these 3 cards attached to each other. Okay, so go ahead, take maybe 2 minutes, see if how you can work with a partner to organize these so that way they do fall into the right cards. You notice if I put one on accident and I realize that in the wrong place, for example, I can just drag it out. If it is in the right place, then I can put it back. All right, so go ahead, work on this, and we'll take a look at them all in just a moment. All right, take a look, check your answers, see how you did. And let's see if there's anybody who can explain a little bit about why you put certain ones into each category. All right, moving on to slide 4. On slide 4, here we're going to put these number cards in order from greatest to least. So we'll notice that we're putting the greatest on the top, and if I scroll down, I can see the least at the very bottom. You're going to drag them around by taking the bars on the side and just dragging them up and down to where you believe they belong. So here, I'm noticing something. I'm noticing that I do have a 0. I'm also noticing that all the other numbers other than 0 are positive numbers. So that tells me a little bit of where to start. I'll go ahead and start you off. And because of that, I know I am going to put the 0 as the very least because all the numbers are going to be above 0 or greater than 0 because they are all positive. Go ahead, get yourself maybe about 3 minutes to put these numbers in order, 2 to 3 minutes. And notice here, when you are done, go ahead and click to check your ordering. I believe you have 3 attempts to do this one on your own, okay? So don't click this unless you are pretty sure of what you have. All right, so here is the correct order. Please check on how you did with this. And if there are any questions, then we can see if there's anyone who can give a reason that helps explain how we know that this is the correct order. So from greatest to least, there is 8, 5 and 1/2, 5, 4, 3, 2.5, 2, 9/8, 1, 1/4, and our least in this case is 0. And so you'll notice that this is very much like our vertical number line, where we have the greater numbers listed on the top and our lower numbers listed towards the bottom. And we're going to take this information and continue on to slide 5, where we're going to put these numbers in order, so also from greatest to least, and take a look at our numbers that we have here. And again, you might notice on these ones that we do have 0. And all the other numbers this time are negative. So go ahead, take about 2 to 3 minutes and see how you do with putting these ones in order from greatest at the top to least at the bottom. And also keeping in mind the idea that this is very similar to that vertical number line. And some of you might even notice something special or very similar with these numbers that we are looking at here compared to the previous slide. Go ahead and take a moment to complete this slide. If you didn't notice it, these numbers are actually the opposite numbers of the ones we were looking at earlier. So here, instead of 1/4 that we had in our previous slide, here's our 1/4, now we have on slide 5, negative 1/4. And we'll notice how it does relate compared to our number line. So here from 0 on our previous slide, if I'm looking at 0 and going up our number line, I have 0, 1/4, 1, and 9/8. Here, going to our negative numbers, I have from greatest to least, 0, negative 1/4, negative 1, negative 9/8. And you'll see that it is actually almost like I'm flipping it over, right? I have here how they connect. The way that they are connecting is that they really do line up just in the opposite direction. So here you can see the rest of our way down. We continue with -2, -2.5, -3, -4, -5, -5 and 1/2, and -8. And as we're thinking about this, I just want you to kind of think about this question. How did placing our negative numbers compare to placing our positive numbers? What challenges did you find? Or what is it that you found about our positive numbers that might have helped you as you were plotting and ordering our negative numbers? Looking at slide 6 now, we're going to be writing in some sentences based on what we see here in this number line. So my directions say, write one sentence using each of the following terms to describe or compare the values of points M, N, P, R. So I see here's my 0. I notice that 2 to the right of 0 is N, but truthfully, I don't even know if this is really 2. Because if each tick mark, for example, is worth 5, then I'd be counting by 5. So this would be like -5, -10, -15, -20, -25, and that continues on. If it was going by tens, for example, going this direction or going all over it, basically it'd be like 10, 20, 30, 40, -10, -20, -30, -40. And really, because it's not labeled except for where 0 is, I just can assume, well, this is the 2 tick marks away from 0. This one I see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tick marks away from 0, and it is to the left of 0 also. So there's some information that I do know, but I don't quite have it all. All right, so looking to see how I could answer these and write these sentences, I can see that I'm looking to fill in these blanks, and I see that something is greater than something else. Well, I don't know what the numbers are, but I do know that if it's further to the right, it's going to be greater than something that's further to the left. So I can simply fill this in by saying, for example, that R is greater than, well, you go ahead, fill it in, see what makes the most sense to you, fill in the rest of them. We have here, for example, blank is less than something else. Something is the opposite of something else. And here we're looking for something being a negative number. All right, take about 2 minutes to complete this one, and then we'll see how we did from there. Please take a moment to share with your partner your different responses that you have, and please be listening into your partner's responses too, so that way maybe we can hear from you what your partner had said. All right? Now let's take a moment to listen to a few of our ideas that we came up with. Please share one of the things that your partners have said. And now here you might notice that you might have different answers than your partner does have, right? That's because there's different possibilities for these. The goal was to really look to see, can we really use precise language to compare these relative positions of our rational numbers here? Did you have a answer that was different than your partner? Were you both correct though? And if not, how did you work together maybe to reach an agreement? Also, how can we tell if two numbers are opposites? So these are some things that we want to make sure that we are understanding as we go through this, right? We can't tell two numbers are opposites if they're actually the same distance away from zero. So please note that. Again, opposites being that they are the same distance from zero, so the opposite of negative 11 would really be positive 11. The opposite of positive 15 would be negative 15. They're both the same distance from zero on a number line. Taking a look at slide 17, we're actually going to use the same number line that we were looking at earlier, but now you're going to give me some values if we now know just how far away each one is. So here, for example, to start off, it says tell what the value of each point would be if P is 2.5. So I'm going to start by looking at P. Point P is a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tick marks away from zero. So if I know that P is at 5 tick marks away from zero and it is 2.5, well, here, let's go ahead and open up a Jamboard and see how that would work out. So here I have 0, and I know it's 5 away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here again is point P on my number line. And so here I'm really going to see, well, how much is it just to take only just one jump? If I know how much it is to take one jump, it makes it a whole lot easier to figure out all the rest of them. Okay, so it is a total of 5 jumps, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jumps away. And so I'm going to take that 2.5 and divide it into those 5 equal jumps that I'm taking. 2.5 divided by these 5 jumps is actually 1/2. So here, for example, this would be 1/2, and then 1 whole, and then 1.5, and then 2 wholes, and here's our 2.5. Meaning I can keep going, and I know the next one would be 3, I know the next one would be 3.5, and I can go the same thing in the opposite direction, and now I have negative 1/2. Notice how they have the same distance from zero. And the next one below that would be negative 1, and that continues on. So for this first one, I am looking at 1/2 jumps for each one. And so let's start with R. So here, if we know this is 1/2, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, here's 3, 3.5, and R would be 4. Continuing on, I see that I'm going to be looking at my negative one. So I'm going to go ahead and even start by putting my negative symbol for both of these. Okay. So going from 0, I'm going to go half jumps again. So here, this first tick mark would be -1/2, and this would be -1. Continuing from there, for m, -1.5, -2, -2.5. And so here, -2, I'll put a space, or I can actually make this more fraction, like by using my math tool. I'll put -2, I'll put the space, 1/2 to get 2.5. These take about 3 minutes, 4 minutes to continue through these and see how we do with this too. You may work with a partner. Again, my biggest advice is to start by first figuring out, well, how many jumps does it take to get to that letter? And well, how can I divide it up evenly so that way I know how much each jump is actually worth. Continuing to look through this, I have here to tell what the value of each point would be if n is -0.4. So here, n is 2 tick marks away from 0, so I'm going to start with that. And on my Jamboard, I'm going to start by drawing a number line or sketching one out. I'm looking at the negative, so I'll go ahead and put 0 here. And again, n is 2 tick marks away. And so it said that this is going to be -0.4. And so here I am 2 away from it. So I'm going to take 0.4 and divide it into those 2 jumps. In this case, it would give me a 0.2 of a jump each time. But this is to the left of 0, so I do know that this is going to be -0.2 for every jump. So I'm going to use this information to help me figure out the rest. So here's -0.2, -0.4, -0.6, -0.8, and it's going to be -1. So here m would be -1. And continuing on, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and 1 whole. And lastly, you can see here for r, this is 1, this is 1.2, 1.4, and 1.6. You might have noticed already that here for m, I have -1, and for p, I have 1. Over here, I'm noticing for m, I have -2.5, and for p, I have 2.5. So I'm noticing something between the relationship between m and p already. Okay, take a look at letter C. It says to tell what the value of each point would be if r is 200. Let's see where r is. R is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 jumps away. So here, 8 jumps away. I'm going to draw my number line again. I'm going 8 jumps from 0. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to get to r. And it says that r is a total of 200. So this is 200. So I'll take 200 and I'll divide that up into these 8 jumps. So 200 divided by the 8, I know that, well, first of all, I know that 4 jumps away, 1, 2, 3, 4, will be halfway to get me the 100, right? And so 200 divided by 8 is 25. If you helps though, you can even just subdivide this even more by going to 50 and then figure out that each one of these jumps will be 25. So 25, 50, 75, 100. I like thinking about money when I'm counting by 25s. It kind of helps me think by thinking about quarters. From here, I can go 125, 150, 175, and 200. All right, so this gives me a lot of information already. And we see here for P, it would be 25, 50, 75, 100, 125 for P. And based on what we were seeing earlier, it seems that M would be its opposite, right? P is a positive and M is our negative in the same amount. And we can see that that's true because, well, notice here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away, also just in the opposite direction. And so here, I've P is 125, that means M must be negative 125. And N, in this case, negative 25, negative 50. Last one we're looking at here is to tell the value of each point if M is negative 15. So here, I'm looking for M. We just counted that M is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away. So here, if I'm drawing a number line to help me think through this, I'm going to start with 0. I'm going to go 5 away. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 jumps to get to M. And again, it's saying that M is going to be a total of, what is it? Let's see. M is negative 15. And so if M is negative 15, I have here 15 away from 0. So each jump must be worth 3. So I get to negative 3, negative 6, negative 9, negative 12, negative 15. Here, this was point N. So I know that point N is at negative 6. We know that point P is the opposite of M. And so here, instead of 15, I'll be negative, instead of negative 15, I'll be positive 15. And R, we can keep on going by threes. So here's positive 15, positive 18, positive 21, and positive 24. Looking over at slide 8, we're looking at some drinks for sale. A vending machine in an office building sells bottled beverages. The machine keeps track of all the changes in the number of bottles from sales and from machine refills and maintenance. This record shows the changes for every 5-minute period over 1 hour. So here, for example, you see in the time, it goes from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, well, almost 9 o'clock, so 8:59 would make us a full hour from 8 o'clock. And so here we can see what's happening is the change every 5 minutes. So from 8 o'clock to 8:04, you'll see there's -1 or a -1. And so if it's a change of -1, you could imagine that one bottle has been bought and basically the water or the soda, whatever it might be, the bottled beverage, like it says, basically is now out of the machine and so is now a -1 change from what it used to be. Here, it's almost like the maintenance person comes to refills it, and you'll notice that we have a positive 12. And so now the change that's happening is really that 12 more bottles have been put in during this time. Please use the information here that we see on the table to be able to answer the questions on the side, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. All right, looking at question 1, it's asking what might a positive number mean in this context, and what about a negative number? Well, like we were looking at a moment ago, positive number really means that the bottles are being added to the machine, while a negative number means that bottles are being dispensed or otherwise being removed from the machine, right? Someone's buying it, perhaps. Okay. Number 2, ask what would a 0 in the second column mean in this context, right? 0, if you look down here, we see a couple times where 0 change is happening. And if 0 change is happening, there's really no change happening. And so there's no activity. That is, that the machine is not being stocked with any new bottles and that it's not dispensing any bottles either, or the amount stocked is basically equal to the amount that has been dispensed. Um, The last idea here, which is for number 3, it asks which numbers, positive or negative, result in fewer bottles in the machine. And here we are seeing that negative numbers lead to fewer bottles in the machine because that means that bottles are being removed from the machine. On slide 9, we're continuing to look at the same table that we saw moments ago and answering these questions that go along with it as well. So please take a few more moments right now, a few more minutes right now to look at these questions, read them again if you need to, read them over again if you need to do that again still, and you may work with a partner to get them answered. Taking a look at these ones now, we have here number 4. At what time was there the greatest change to the number of bottles in the machine? And how did that change affect the number of remaining bottles in the machine? Well, the greatest change happened at 8:50 to 8:54. And you'll see here that basically the number of bottles in the machine increased by a total of 24. Here we see that increase because it's a positive number and it's increasing by 24, whereas all the other changes here, for example, negative 12, and here we have a positive 12. Those are also high, but they're definitely not as high of a change as our addition of 24 bottles there. Number 5 asks, at which time period, 8:05 to 8:09, so that's this one right here, or 8:25 to 8:29, right here, okay, was there a greater change to the number of bottles in the machine, right? In this case, really, there was the same amount of change, right? In this case, we're adding 12 bottles, and here we're subtracting or removing 12 bottles. But the change is that it's still 12 that is either being removed or 12 that is being added into it. And lastly, it's asking, well, if the machine must be emptied to be serviced, so after this hour they're servicing the machine, and there are 40 bottles in the machine, well, when it needs to be serviced, what number will go in this second column on the table? If there's 40 bottles that are in the machine when it's time to be serviced and they need to remove all of them, well, they need to remove all the bottles. We're going to have a negative 40 that has to happen in this case. All right. Take a look at these questions, see how well you feel you can answer them. If you are a little confused on any of these ideas, please make sure you write down your questions. That way we can really go back to them later on, discuss them, and help you to better understand what our responses would want to be for these. Here, what are some situations where negative numbers make sense? What do these words positive, negative, and zero mean in those situations? Right? I want you to think about, well, what on the number line, what about on the number line? What do positive and negative mean on a number line? And is zero positive or negative? Let's answer that one real quick right now. Is zero positive or negative? It's neither, right? It's not positive. It's not a negative number either. What are some ideas you have about opposites? What is the opposite of zero? Well, if opposites is the distance away from zero on a number line, then the opposite of zero has to be zero away from zero on the number line also, just in the other direction. Well, if we go zero to the left, then I'm just going to go zero to the right, and so I'm still on zero, meaning that the opposite of zero really is just zero. Done. And how can you tell if one number is greater than or less than another? And how would you write that? How do you write that? Right? So again, just this idea of using those greater than symbols or less than symbols. Right? And also being able to tell the greater and less by how far it is to the left or to the right or to the right or to the left on our number line. Please take a moment to look at our summary of today's lesson on slide 11. You'll notice here that we are looking at how we can help to order rational numbers and how they would appear when we are ordering them on a number line. And lastly, slides 12, 13, and 14 are your cool down slides. Please make sure you're working on these independently throughout this rest of this time so that way you can do your best to show me what you currently know. All right. Our first one, slide 12, is to place these from greatest to least, something we practiced early on in this lesson. Here, slide 13, we have here to write a sentence to compare the 2 points shown. So the point that we have here is negative 2.7 and 4.5. So you're going to be using those points when you're going to write a sentence that compares them. So we're looking at comparing them, perhaps with an inequality. And finally, a quick check to see how well you feel about the different things that we've done in this lesson today.